car living without using any tools and doing any building permanently while on vacation, or just sleeping in your car for a couple of nights comfortably and safely?
Well, I'm going to show you how. Let's get started.
Welcome to Sweller Than Dweller.
The first consideration is, of course, the size of the car. Now, when you get down to the smaller cars, people think, well, a small car is a small car. But that's not really the case. There's still several sizes, even though they might look the same. And it matters, because when you're living and sleeping in it, every inch counts. Obviously, the bigger the car, the better. But if you have to rent a car, like I did in this case, to travel in Argentina, well, you kind of want to keep it as small as possible, because as soon as you get a larger car, they skyrocket in price. So how big of a car do you really need? Well, it kind of comes down to how you're going to use it. If you're just sleeping in it and you're going to be eating out all the time, well, that's different than if you're sleeping in it and you're also going to be camping and you need to be able to cook, and you're going to have to store everything you need to cook and all your food. Let's first look at the second case, because it's a bit more complicated. This is a Renault Sandero. It's just over 4 meters in length. And that, for me, is about the smallest you can go if you're sleeping in it and you're also going to be cooking out of it. Because you need space to store your luggage, plus all of your cooking stuff and your food. Now, there's also a class of cars that go much smaller, commonly around 3.7 meters and even as low as 3 meters. If you're going to be eating out and you just need to store your luggage, you can probably get away with one of these smaller cars. But I've seen how some people pack when traveling, so you can't go too small, because depending on how you pack, you may run out of space. So you need to be conscious of this. Alright, so that takes care of picking the size of the vehicle. Now let's look at the intricacies of actually living in it. As far as sleeping in a car, I think you've got 3 choices. You can recline in the front seat, or you can sleep across the back seat, or you can extend yourself into the trunk or hatchback by lowering the rear seat back. Sleeping reclined in the front seat, I mean, it's just not that comfortable. It's kind of like, can you hack it? Even though it reclines, it's not going to go flat, and it's kind of wavy, so it's just not comfortable. If you've ever had an overnight flight and had to sleep in an airplane, it's kind of like that. You might be able to do it for a night or two, but it's not going to be comfortable, and you're kind of going to be trashed. You're not going to get a restful sleep. So if you're only looking at a night or two, you might be able to make this work, but it's just not the best. Let's try to find a better way. It can help if you use a sleeping pad or mattress to kind of even out the unevenness, but it's still not ideal. Option number 2, sleeping across the back seat, is what I tend to choose, because I can make it work best for me. Now, I'm 5'8", and this allows me to lay flat with my legs bent, which actually isn't as uncomfortable as it sounds, because I often sleep this way in a full bed anyways. And you can sleep on your side, pointing your knees towards the front seats, but if you want to turn over, well, your knees are going to be pointing into the back seat, so that won't work. But there's a trick. You just flip over so that your head is on the opposite side of the car, and then you can point your legs in the opposite direction. You just gotta be willing to move around. Depending on your car, there's other things you can do. Like in this Sandero, I find that I can raise my legs and perch them on the windowsill here, and that's actually pretty comfortable and lets me extend my legs further than if I just lay them on the seat. Now, if you're much taller than 5'9", the taller you get, the more progressively difficult it is going to be to sleep across the back seat, because you just won't be able to fit your torso in lying flat. You'll just have to test it out. But if you're too tall, you're going to have to find another solution. Now, the biggest issue to sleeping across the back seat, to a much lesser extent than the front seat, is that the seat is just not flat. And you got these seat belts in the way. It's just not comfortable. But my friends, there is a way to improve this like 1,000%. It makes an enormous difference. What you do is you lay a sleeping pad across the back seat. Now you have to be careful. You probably can't use an air mattress because they're going to be too long. I have an older sleeping pad, and the advantage of this is you can fold it over to tailor it to the exact width of the car for a perfect fit. This sleeping pad evens out the seat completely and removes the seatbelt attachments from the equation. It's just pure comfort, and it really does make an enormous difference. All the difference in the world. For me, it's an absolute game changer as far as being able to sleep comfortably in the car for many nights. Now, if you want to get real fancy, it also helps if you don't just lay the sleeping pad on the back seat, but position it so that it's mostly on the seat, but also partially extending onto the backrest. This seems to create a bit of a cradle that cups your body and is super comfortable. Now, obviously, I'm going to be in a sleeping bag normally, but here, I just want to show you my body positioning without the sleeping bag in the way, so you can see how the body positioning actually looks. So here you can see my head is against the door, and my legs are bent. And as mentioned, that doesn't really bother me because I often sleep that way in a full-size bed anyways. This allows you to sleep on your side or facing upwards with your knees pointing towards the roof. As mentioned, there's other creative things you can do to extend your legs more fully, like resting them on the windowsill or resting them against the top of the seat back of the front seat. Or you could even lower the front seat and then lay them across that. It really depends on the kind of car you have, how big you are, how far the seats come back. There's a lot of variables. You just got to play around with it. The other thing to get a good night's sleep I need is a pillow. And because I'm flying internationally, I don't have enough room to carry a pillow. So what I do is I try to make things double duty. I take my neck pillow that I'd normally use on an airplane, and I use it when I'm sleeping in my car, and it works just fine. The final option that might work best for taller people is to lower the back seat and extend your legs into the trunk space. However, the biggest problem with this is in most cars, the back seat does not go flat, and there's also a huge uneven ridge created between the top of the back seat and the floor of the trunk. But if you can find a way to even this out, it just might work for you. Now, in some cars, they're designed awesome, and the back seat goes totally flat, and there's no ridge between that and the floor of the trunk. These are ideal. But there is a minor disadvantage with this configuration, and that's when it comes to theft protection, which we'll talk about later. Let's take a look at how to pack the trunk. Since I'm cooking in the car, I have a lot of cooking equipment and food. So in addition to picking up my food at the grocery store, I also asked them for a few boxes. And these are incredibly helpful for just keeping things organized. And I keep these positioned in a place that's very convenient in the trunk because I use them a lot. As far as my luggage, I actually keep it unzipped so I can easily access things. While my most often used things, I just kind of keep them outside of the suitcase and try to keep things as organized as possible. The next thing we should talk about is charging. Sweller, how do you keep all your electronic devices charged and power your hairdryer and stuff like that? Okay, no hairdryer. No hairdryer jokes.
So what I did was I brought along a little 100-watt inverter that plugs into the accessory socket.
My charging needs are really not too great, but I do have a little bit of a load. The biggest power hog is probably my laptop, and to charge it, I need a regular 3-prong outlet, which I've made sure my inverter has. An AC outlet for my laptop, and a USB port for everything else. The other things I need to charge are my smartphone, my camera batteries, and I also brought along an 8,000 milliamp power bank. The reason I have the power bank is that if everything is fully charged and I'm still going to be driving further, I want to utilize that power generation. I plug in the power bank and charge it up so that when I'm not driving and I need to charge, I have all that reserve energy that I can get from the power bank. Now, if you're renting a vehicle and not flying internationally, you can probably use something a little bit larger than this. I had to keep it down to this size because I mean, that's really all I can fly with. But if you're not flying, I mean, it's so much easier. You can even get a power station, which would, that's what I use with my van at home in North America. I mean, that works wonderfully. The power station I have at home is, I think 320 watt hours, and it charges a lot of stuff for a long time. And it's actually even quite small as far as power banks go.
So that about covers my power charging strategy.
Let's talk a little bit about protection from theft. Robberies and theft through smashing of windows is a problem everywhere. What we need to do is try to minimize ourselves as a target. And the best way we can do that is by making sure that the car is clean and empty of everything. The visible area needs to have nothing in it, not even your favorite drinking cup. When you leave the car to go sightseeing or hiking, it should be empty. You want to give thieves as little a reason to pick your car to smash and grab as possible. And if there's visibly nothing in it, hopefully, but not always, they just won't bother. Now, I also take this to another level. What if worst case happens and somebody does break into the car? If I'm flying internationally to another country, I separate my items into things that can be replaced if needed and things that are absolutely critical and irreplaceable. The things that are absolutely critical, I do my best to hide so that if somebody breaks into my car, they're hopefully just going to look to grab what's easily accessible and take off. So what I've done in this Sandero is lifted up the floor panel in the trunk to where the spare tire is stored. This is a place where I store my valuables, like my laptop, and most importantly, my backup hard drive with all my video. This is irreplaceable. Other things that are critical but light, like my money, credit cards, my passport, all of those things, I keep in my day pack, which I always carry with me when I leave the car. Things like clothes, my toothbrush, all that kind of stuff, I can buy if I have to. I'm kind of brainstorming ideas to use what I have to make things a little more tamper-proof. Now, I'm not saying this is going to stop every thief, but it might stop some. Let's take a look. To keep the back seat secure in an upright position, there is a metal hoop welded to the body of the car. What I'm doing is taking a long neck padlock that I have and looping that through there, and then connecting that to the metal carry strap loop on my backpack. This way, unless a thief has some pretty major tools or a very sharp big knife, they won't just be able to pull my entire backpack out of the trunk quickly and make a getaway. They'll have to do some work. But Sweller, they'll just unzip your backpack and take everything out of it and leave your backpack laying there. Well, my friends, I also have a second lock, and I'm using it to lock the zipper shut. So they're going to have some pretty major tools to either break the lock or a really big sharp knife to just cut the backpack to shreds to get everything out of it. And I don't know that every thief smashing windows actually carries a knife around as well. Maybe, but maybe not. So my goal is just to make it as difficult as possible and stop some thieves. Now, a lot of what I've talked about is only going to work if you're alone. If you're with two people, you're obviously going to need more space. But with two people to share the cost, you can easily get a much larger vehicle like an SUV, which will have enough room for both of you and make it work.
Now, if you want to know how living in this rental car while traveling through Argentina actually worked out for me, subscribe to A Passport $1. It's free, and the adventures start soon.